I gotta tell you guys, the Saturn was something of a disappointment for me over the course of that generation. Don't get me wrong, I would eventually find an appreciation for the system, but at its heyday, it wasn't what I was really expecting. You see, I was actually kind of hyped for it. The first time I heard of the Saturn was through a conversation my brother had with his friends. They got they recently acquired like a EGM magazine, and there was an article in there. As a kid, I didn't really know what to make of it. To me, new generation consoles just kind of showed up. I didn't know when they were going to come or if they were planning anything. They just kind of showed up. That's pretty much how I saw things. The Jaguar kind of showed up and the 3DO kind of showed up. So I wasn't very in the loop. But the Saturn was the first console that I heard word about before the actual launch. So this was something of a new experience to me. Despite that, I really didn't know what to make of it. The successors to the Genesis was going to be out at some point in the future, and I honestly didn't know what was going to happen. I was still a young kid at the time and was happy with my Genesis, playing Shinobi 3, Streets of Rage, Landstalker, Eternal Champions, and of course Sonic the Hedgehog. So there was little to no reason for me to want anything else. That changed though in May 11th, 1995. My brother just showed up with the console one day. I didn't even know that there was an early launch. And it was pretty surprising, to be honest. I heard that some game stores in the area sold the Japanese units, but this wasn't a Japanese unit. No, this was the black American unit right in front of me. So shortly after coming home, my brother connected it and started playing Virtua Fighter. I was blown away. This was the first time I've ever seen 3D polygons used like this. Before, it was all vehicles like cars, planes, and spaceships, like a static shape moving around in a 3D environment. And although that was pretty interesting at the time, I kind of saw it as a gimmick. But no, Virtua Fighter was different. These were actual 3D rendered human polygonal figures moving around in fluid animation. Never mind that there was clipping and the arena pop-in. This was the first time I've ever seen Virtua Fighter, and to me, it was like I was truly in the next generation. The following week, I got to see Panzer Dragoon. This game I consider to be the most beautiful, best sounding atmospheric game at the time. This game was doing things that I never imagined. A 3D polygonal textured dragon, a background layer that went on into the horizon, and shimmering water effects with reflections. It was an experience I never thought possible. It was also the game that kind of defined where this generation was going. The following week, I got a chance to see Daytona USA. Now, like before with Virtua Fighter, I've never seen the arcade version of this game, so there wasn't no expectation. But what I did see was an excellent arcadey Sega racer that was just fun. The gameplay was there, the music was there, and it gave me a new appreciation to what this system can do. If they could get something as mundane as a 3D racer to be this fun, I can only imagine what the Saturn could have done with anything else. Now with these three games that I saw early on, it kind of like shaped or defined my expectations for the Saturn. I was really looking forward to how the new Streets of Rage was going to look, how the new Phantasy Star was going to look, and basically I was half anticipating what the next Sonic the Hedgehog will be like. It was a very exciting time. Don't get me wrong, I was kind of amped up, and at that point was praying to God that my parents would get me one within the next couple of years. However, it would be some time before I would get a chance to step into the next generation. Unfortunately, during this period, situations that were out of my hands kept me in the dark. From mid 1996 to early 1998, I was unaware of the situation that was going on in the gaming business, particularly with Sega itself. The last thing I read was that Eternal Champions was being cancelled, but that was it. And even though EC was pretty fun at the time, the Saturn was in its second run of great titles. Fighting Vipers, Sega Rally, Knights, and well, that was it. Sega's 32-bit system was riding high, and that's how I saw things for a while. Unbeknownst to me, the man that was in charge of Sega of America during its heyday on the Sega Genesis left, and someone else took his place. Things changed, and well, it wasn't good. Games were being cancelled, stuff from Japan was being ignored, and above all else, Sonic Extreme was nowhere to be seen. This all hit me in early 98, and at this point, I haven't seen anything 32-bit, besides the occasional peek of a PlayStation game at school from one of my teachers. Don't ask, he was cool like that. He would bring his PlayStation from time to time and let some of the kids play like on a free day or something. But besides that, I didn't really see anything. Then, on my birthday that year, my dad, along with some input from my brother, gifted me a PlayStation. I know I mentioned this in my Dreamcast video, but it begs to be repeated. And yeah, I was happy. I was happy to receive any console. And don't get me wrong, my friends and I were having a blast on that platform. But a part of me really wanted a Saturn. I wanted to play games that made the Genesis what it was in 32-bit. Unfortunately, that's not what happened. Like I said before in my Dreamcast video, my dad took me to buy a game shortly after getting me a PlayStation 1. And while I was there at the store, forgot which one, but while I was there, I took a peek at their Saturn section and found it nearly empty, save for like 3 sports titles and one other game I can't remember. This left me stunned and kind of confused. I half expected to see Streets of Rage 4, Phantasy Star 5, and of course the new Sonic game that was talked about all those years ago. But my time away from the magazines and the people who I would talk to left me blissfully unaware of what was going on with Sega. Anyone who read the EGM September 97 issue will know what I'm talking about. In there it was said that Sega was no longer being supported the way it should have been. Instead, Bernie Stoller pivoted away from that system and pretty much left Sega fans high and dry for about 2 years. And after talking to my brother and his friends and catching up with some older EGMs, it left me looking at the Saturn in disappointment. This was mostly due to anticipating games that would never arrive, but also because the charm that was present on the Genesis did not carry over. I distinctly remember looking at a Saturn at one point and felt disinterested. It was at a store, it was heavily marked down, and part of me kind of wanted to buy it, but yeah, as a Sega fan, it kind of bummed me out, and there was really nothing there for me to merit a purchase. Fighting Vipers looked cool and definitely screamed Sega, but that was just one game. When more news of the Dreamcast started to ramp up, I just kind of left it behind and made it as the one Sega system I wouldn't own. And there you have it, guys. The Sega Saturn. I know how I said that last part, as a bit of a bummer, but at the time, that's how I felt. The Saturn was something of a disappointment for a while because none of the games I was anticipating or hoping for ever came out. There was no new Phantasy Star, there was no new Sonic, there was no new Streets of Rage, and the charm, the feel I had from the Genesis just didn't carry over. There was nothing on there that I really wanted. There was some things. Dark Savior could be something as a semi-sequel to Landstalker, but I wouldn't find out about that till much later, after I got my Saturn. And yeah, it took a while for me to actually get one. The one thing that really made me finally get one was when I finally got the internet. When I got the internet, I began reading around, And since I like fighting games, the one thing I've always heard was that the Saturn version or the Saturn iterations of like Capcom and SNK games were always better. That, you know, X-Men vs. Street Fighter played like the arcade because it had actual tag mechanics. You know, there's more frames of animation in Street Fighter 03. All the SNK games are like nearly perfect or one-to-one to the arcade. And that just made me think like, well, the Saturn's right there, you know. Let me see how much one is. Let me go find one. And at the time, these were relatively cheap. I got this one for like $40 on eBay, believe it or not. And with the action replay and found the X-Men vs. Street Fighter disc, like in the course of a week, I had all that stuff and started playing Saturn. And that's like through that avenue, I was finally able to experience the Sega Saturn and grew to appreciate it. I was like, oh damn, this is an excellent console. I started buying games left and right, you know, Sega Rally, you know, Virtua Cop, you know, Astal, all these games that I remember reading in magazines. I was finally able to experience them, and I could finally look at it, you know, I could finally see it as for what it is. It's an excellent console on its own. It has tons of great games, and although it's not the console I wanted, it's still a good machine that offers experiences that like any game will enjoy. If you want RPGs, there's Grandia. You could buy Grandia, patch it, and then play it in English with graphics way better than what was done on the PlayStation. I just don't want to start listing games here and there, but yeah, if you're into the Saturn, read up on it, and you might find something you like. Whew, I've been going on, but anyway, thank you guys for watching. Please comment, rate, and subscribe, and like always, have a good one. Take care, you guys.